By popular demand, let us talk about the New York Islanders. And I want to get this out of the way first. This is my John Tavares jersey. Now I got this one for about $50 from Lids over the summer, and I got it because it's a $50 Adidas jersey. So I'm like, all right, I can pay that. Now the interesting thing is, now I'm wearing the Tavares jersey for two reasons. One, because it's a good Islanders jersey, and two, I really think that for Islander fans who want to boo all the Tavares jerseys, remember, Tavares leaving may have been the best thing that's happened to this team. May have been the best thing that's happened to the franchise. And when you look at where they are in the standings, things are going pretty darn well right now. And I could understand the Tavares hate if they weren't. Like, if the Islanders were absolutely in the tank and they absolutely sucked this year, I could understand it. But being number one, that's, as I said, a big part of it has to do with Tavares. You have to change the way you play the game when your superstar player goes out the door, and that's what they've kind of done. Hiring Barry Trotz was brilliant. Now, here's your 2018-2019 stats. Here's your 2017-2018. So here's where we are. Here's where we were. This year, scoring first, they're 16-7-4. Last year, they were 23-10-5. They only scored first 38 times last year. This year, they're already at 27 out of 47. So, definitely a better record. Opponent shoots first, or opponent scores first, they're 12-8 this year. Last year, when the opponent scores first, they're 12-27-5. That's a huge difference. So now when the Islanders get behind, you don't just throw your arms in the air and go, well, that's it, it's over. Out shooting. So when they outshoot their opponent, this year they're 7-9-1. Last year they're 10-14-5. So that's still weird. But when they're outshot, there's a big difference. They're 21-5-3 this year. Last year they were 25-22-5. So huge difference when they're outshot. The Islanders are pretty deadly. 1-goal games. This year they're 5-4. Last year they're 6-11. So they're not in as many 1-goal games to this point as they were at this point last year, but their record is much better in them. Now, when you look at scoring by each period, you see that this is a team that is very remarkably consistent. First period, they've outscored their opponents 45-35, 43-35 in the second, 48-45 in the third, and in overtime, 4-1. Final total is 140 goals for, 116 goals against. Last year, they scored 73, allowed 87 in the first, scored 86, allowed 108 in the second, scored 95, allowed 91 over the third periods, and all. Of course, this is all 82 games, and 7-7 in overtime. So your final totals: 261 goals for, 293 against. So they allowed 32 more goals than they scored. This year, they've scored 34 more than they've allowed, 24 more than they've allowed. And it has been an impressive turnaround. Shots. So last year, I talked a lot about how they were allowing way too many shots. And here's where we're going to see it. Now, I still think Barry Trotz would ideally like to see the shots against come down even further. But it's much better than what it was. This year, they've been outshot in the first 445-431. Second period, 510-464. Third period, 461-401 for a grand total after the overtime, where they've outshot their opponents 24-18. Your grand total is 1,434 shots against, 1,320 shots for the New York Islanders. But last year, over an 82-game schedule, they had 810 shots. They allowed 979. That's just in the first. Second, they had 877 shots for, so that's better. But they allowed 987 shots. Third period, they had 839 shots. They allowed 905. In none of these three periods were they anywhere near. Now, this year, at least in the first, they're close. They've only allowed 14 more shots than they've got. And last year was 169, so that's an improvement. Your final shots for last year, 2,555. Your final shots against, 2,897. So again, they're not where they'd like to be with these totals, but they're nowhere near as bad as last year. Their record right now is 28-15-4. They're first in the Metro with 60 points. Through 47 games last year, 23-20-4. They had 50 points. They were 10 points ahead of where they were last year at this time. Allowed 4 goals. We're going to start with last year. Last year they did it 25 times. 25 times they allowed 4 goals or more through that first 47 games. So 47 games, 25 times. So more than half the time they allowed 4 or more goals. You're not going to win a lot doing that. This year, they allowed 4 goals 10 times in their first 20. So problematic. Barry Trotz, though, puts the system in. Only allowed goals 4 times in 3 of the next 20, and only in 1 in games 41 through 47, and that was in game 41. So the Islanders doing a much better job of keeping other teams off the board. Shutouts for and against. Against this year, they've had one shutout against them. They've had 4 in their favor. Last year at this time, they had 3 against them, 0 in their favor. So everything's kind of turned around in favor of the Islanders. Shots per game. And this is over an 82-game schedule. This year, they have 28 shots per game. They've allowed 30.5. Last year, they had 31.1 shots per game, so they've taken 3.1 less shots per game than last year. But last year, they allowed 35.3, and that's 4.8 shots against better this year than last year. Big difference right there, and it's a big part of the reason why things have turned around. But the biggest thing that fans will point to is goaltending. Robin Lehner right now, 14-7-3, 2.11 goals against, 928 save percentage. Thomas Greiss, 14-8-1, 2.5 goals against, 920 save percentage. Last year, Jaro Halak, 26-6 with a 3.19 goals against, 906 save percentage. Greiss ended up 13-8-2, so almost the same record, but 3.82 goals against, 892 save percentage. His save percentage is 38 points higher than last year. And Lehner's is 22 points higher than the guy he replaced in Jaro Halak. So the goaltending is completely different. The defense is much better. They're getting shutouts. They're not allowing 4 goals per game. Everything is working in their favor. Then you look at the individual players and their defensive numbers. Plus, minus in a vacuum, not a big deal. But in this case, I wanted to look at each individual player. These are key guys. Josh Bailey, last year a minus 20, this year a plus 14. So while he may not put up as many points as last year, that may be how things turn out. That plus 14 is much better than a minus 20. Anders Lee is now a plus 16. He was a minus 25 last year. Nick Leddy, and Islander fans everywhere were mad at Nick Leddy, it seemed, at the end of last year. He was a very common, we should get rid of Leddy. Minus 42 last year, abysmal. This year, he's a plus 1. So while he's not putting up tremendous defensive numbers, Leddy a plus 1, he's not hurting them on the ice. And Brock Nelson will end there. He was a minus 4 last year. This year, he's a plus 16. For the record, John Tavares was a minus 20 last year for the New York Islanders. So there's something to be said for moving a guy out. Franchise guy, maybe. But maybe it was the best thing that could have happened to the New York Islanders. So there you go. Just some stats from this year and last year. Some where I've used the stats 47 games through the season, and some where I've used the whole 82, just to show you how much things have changed from where we were last April when they missed the playoffs. So let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. How long can they do this? Are they going to be able to maintain this for a full season? And just how dangerous are they once those playoffs roll around? Let me know your thoughts. Hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll talk to you again soon.